Hey everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. In this video, it's going to be an unboxing video, but I'm going to be able to do a slight review because this is for the Grinning Gargoyle Fantasy Paint Starter Set. I've not opened this yet, so let's just remove this film, get rid of some of the glare, I think, once we get rid of the shine. But, you know, I wanted to open it in front of you to make sure I'm seeing it for the first time and you can see exactly as it comes in the box before I've messed with it. So the first thing to note, this is the Grinning Gargoyles version, but it is in cooperation, I think, with Army Painter. It's certainly Army Painter's paints. So this comes with 20 of Army Painter's war paints, a free paintbrush, and that 20 paints consists of 16 colours, 2 metallics and 2 washes. On the back of the box we are presented with everything we're going to see inside. So I guess we kind of don't even need to look inside, but one thing I do want to mention is it's the Fantasy Painter starting set. So it's to me, it seems quite similar to the Dungeons and Dragons version Army Painter already do, except it doesn't come with a miniature, so you're dodging that like extra expense potentially, so you're able to paint fantasy games, including Dungeons and Dragons, including anything. It's not strictly, you know, fixed to fantasy. It's a bunch of colours that work incredibly well in a fantasy game, sort of, you know, what in my experience, Zombicide, Massive Darkness, I know D&D would work, and there's plenty of fantasy games out there. So they've spent a lot of time researching and working out which paints are going to help you paint these games and bundling them all together so you can save a little bit of money, hopefully. So I'll just mention now, while I remember, that the Grinning Gargoyle have kindly donated a set, so I'll be able to add a competition, and I'll leave a link in the description below. It'll be a Gleam one, which is the sort of thing where you use social media to subscribe to this channel, like the Facebook pages, like Instagram, like the Grinning Gargoyles Facebook page, that sort of thing. And you build up entries and you'll be entered into a competition. That's only going to be able to run within the UK, Germany, France, Italy and Spain, I'm afraid. That's the only places these can be posted to. So just bear that in mind when you enter. You've got a high chance because it's only in some countries in Europe, if you're lucky enough to be in those countries. Let's have a look at what we get in the box, and then I'll just give you my review of it, which is going to be pretty easy to do because this isn't my first rodeo. I've opened a lot of these predetermined Army Painter box sets, and they've basically, you know, they've got my 2 thumbs up. I've enjoyed them. That's where I started, and I've used a lot of paints now, and I still think it's a fantastic way of doing it. So should we look at the back of the box? Is it easier to go through the colours? Because you're given basically all the colours that I could think of the top of my head, and they're named in great ways. So you've just got black and white, fantastic, perfectly good. Then you've got pure red, and then a vampire red, which looks quite like blood, as well as it's that maroon colour that you can use for a lot of things. Then you've got an orange, goblin green, giving you a hint, you know, paint goblins this. Sylvan green, is that a creature? It reminds me of like elves or trees, I can't remember, but another good green. You've got a dark brown, a light brown. The skeleton bone, very, very handy colour. You use this off-white a lot. You've got normal, humany, pale flesh sort of thing. You've got a yellow, you've got a dark blue, and a really bright blue. That's fantastic. I haven't got this bright blue. Then you've got a medium grey. So I think this is the first thing I noticed, that it's missing like the dark grey, but you can obviously mix this really easily. Or you can mix it just using black and white. You can make a dark grey, 50-50 of that. It's going to be quite a dark grey, even darker if you use these 2 colours together. So you can always mix these colours together, but I just noticed the dark grey is missing if you're new to mixing, as well as a sort of sandy brown. Again, I think you can just mix these 2 colours and you'll get that colour, that sort of desert yellow. I found that's often missing in these sets, and that's something I noticed painting fantasy that I wanted quite a lot at the beginning. But I got by for over a year without owning purple. So, and I guess you can make purple with red and blue, but I also didn't have a blue. But you can get by without these things, and that's great with these fantasy, well, with these starter kits really, and the fantasy one's good because it gets you a whole bunch of games that are going to very easily paint them, and these would work in modern games and stuff as well, obviously, but it's just a nice place to start. And then you're given 2 tones. You've got the strong tone, which is a dark brown, and you've got flesh wash, which is a slightly reddy wash. So the dark brown's great. You can use it, especially as a beginner, basically on everything. It'll just darken down all of these colours and give it a nice shadow in the recesses. But in my experience, it makes it look a little bit dirty. So you get quite a dirty looking model, which works great in fantasy because it's a whole bunch of dirty monsters or dirty heroes. So I use strong tone for the majority of my miniatures when I first started, because I was painting fantasy as well, and it worked great. I didn't have a flesh wash, and this works perfect with barbarian flesh. I haven't used it with too much else, but I suspect it works well with the reds, the yellow, and the oranges as well. So flesh wash is good. I think a black wash might have been more of the two go-to ones, the black and the strong. But you know, that's just my personal opinion, and you can't go wrong with both of these, but you might be wanting to pick up a black wash fairly early on. And then you're given two metallics as well, and this is spot on. These are the most used metallics I've got, a silver and a gold, and that's it. That's basically all you need. It's taken years until I've started using a lot of different metallics just to get the slightly different looks and feels by the end. So those are going to go a long way. So I think overall these colours are great. This is a really nice place to start, not just for fantasy, but it's great that they've aimed it at an area. It gives you somewhere to begin, because if you're unlucky, you don't have if you don't have Zombicide like myself, and there's that Zombicide kit to get you started, you might not know where to look. So fantastic this is here if you've not got Dungeons and Dragons. Again, this is just generic fantasy. It's going to paint a whole bunch of things. So it's the Army Painter range, and you see I use these day in, day out. I'm very happy with the Army Painter paints. The only downside is the amount of shaking you have to do. It's exhausting. When Benson jokes how big my forearms are, it's purely because I shake a lot of Army Painter paints. You just have to shake for hours, but once it's well mixed, I can't really fault it. And the dropper bottles, oh, so nice. I've been playing with contrast recently, so it's my first delve into Citadel. And what is with the pots? They're just so dangerous. Now, I haven't used this brush myself. I've got a whole bunch of these. I should do a competition so you can win like 100 Army Painter hobby base coating brushes, because I've never used one, but Benson has used it, and for a cheap free brush that you get in a lot of these sets, he does say it's great, it's fine for starting. Give that a little lick. It does get to a decent point. Certainly good enough to paint with as a beginner, and to be honest, looking at that point, I'd do well with that. I don't know how long it lasts. That's no worse than any of the fancy brushes I've used. I don't think. That looks pretty good to me. Let me know in the comments below how that looks at the beginning. I suspect it won't last an indefinite amount of time, but it's going to last long enough that you get through a game, I'd expect. So it's going to get you well and truly started. It's a nice brush. That's all I can say about that. And then this is a really, look at that bright blue. That's going straight on my shelf. That's a beaut. Yeah, is that the same gold? It says bright gold, so I've got bright. Oh, it is the same. It just looks so dark at the top. Yeah, the rain paints are good. Army Painter paints, you know what you're getting. And then I think this is a really solid collection of games for a generic fantasy area when you're not quite sure where to start, or if you just need to top up your collection. Because I started with Zombicide, so I actually have a lot of these colours to begin with, but I always wanted them to have an Arcadia Quest one, something like that. And so if you've started somewhere else and you're missing a lot of these colours in the fantasy colours, you're going to do all right, aren't you? You're just going to get straight in and get a bunch of colours that are going to sort out a lot of fantasy games for you. Not a lot more to say other than I will leave a link in the description below so you guys can go and pick up these paints if you're interested. And yeah, click on that competition and try and win yourselves a free set of these if you're lucky enough to be in those 5 European countries. Thank you all ever so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.